To the system, I don't wanna be a slave. I've been doing shit my way, or the highway. And in the driveway is a nice range. Cause I grind through the climb, I invite pain. You'll never hear me, bitch, nah, I don't complain. Just gotta flip the switch and you can go and obtain anything you want, anything you need. Your mind's got the key ingredient, it's belief. They deceive with the negativity, but I just slide right by that energy. Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 go.
What's going on? Welcome back to the Gallop Out. That is our new intro featuring the greatest horse of all time. That is Mixto. After he won the Pacific Classic. Jackson, I see you shaking your head. How you doing, man?
I'm a little disappointed, Brian. I was really hoping. I heard there's a new intro. I was hoping it would feature Rank, but Mixto's cool too. Maybe next year we can get Rank up there when he finally breaks his maiden.
Look, Mixto. That all kind of came together completely on accident. That wasn't the plan at all. But with the new countdown, the color was blue, and then I happened to have a saved picture of Mixto, that picture with him wearing the blue saddle towel, and I was like, well, hey, that all kind of goes together. I might as well try to make something fun happen for the countdown there. So, yeah, shout out to Mixto. Hope to see him back at the races soon. But, Jackson, you and I got a bunch of races to talk about. Post positions are out. Morning lines are out. And we have three big sprint races to talk about. That's going to be the Filly and Mare Sprint, the Breeders' Cup Sprint, and the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, all to be run on Saturday. And, of course, we're not doing it alone. We're being joined by a guest who's going to be back with us, works for In the Money Media, works at Prairie Meadows. So we gotta check in and see how Iowa Derby Day was and all the biggest days of that Prairie Meadows meet. It's Eric Decoster. How you doing, Eric?
I'm doing great, guys. Now that the meet's over, I'm back in Arizona, and then I'll actually be going down to Oakland, too, working their meet to bide my time as well. So staying busy and obviously enjoying this week handicapping and looking forward to the weekend.
Very cool. I just ran into Matt Ditterman today, running around Del Mar. I turned a corner and there he was by the press box, going up to help Larry out with a few things. But before we dive into the Breeders' Cup races, how is this Prairie Meadows meet? Front to back, you covered it all.
Yeah, it was super enjoyable. I mean, we finished really well. Had some big days towards the end of our meet, including our Iowa Classics night, which is all Iowa breds. Saw some really talented horses do their thing there, and I know quite a few of them might be trying to open company over the winter in the Southwest and maybe even at Oakland. I heard maybe some of those horses could show up there. So it was really exciting meet. Obviously, we had a good festival of racing back in July. Magnitude's gone on to place in a couple grade ones since then, which is pretty cool. So all in all, a pretty good meet.
Yeah, Iowa Derby Day was certainly a really great one with the big draw of Magnitude coming in off that layoff, and he ran to that number he showed at the fairgrounds in, I believe, the Risen Star, if I'm not mistaken. That 114 buyer damn near repeated it. Came out maybe not as strong in the Travers, but that's all right. He saved his A effort for Iowa, and that's all you could really ask for. So exactly. I love to see it. Obviously.
Our good friend Matthew DeSantis will never, ever let us forget how he ran in the Travers. I mean, he brings that as often as he can. I love it.
We'll never hear the end of that one.
No, we won't.
You're completely right. Before we dive into these three sprint races, obviously we got to mention the fact that this morning it was reported on FanDuel TV that Sovereignty last night spiked a bit of a fever. It has since gone down, but his status for Saturday is in doubt. So obviously if we hear anything, Jackson, over this next 6-hour span of shows that we have going on, we will report it, live as best we can. But feels right to start the show off with that, seeing as that is some breaking news. Eric, were you able to catch the post position draw yesterday as they came out, or have you just looked at them since the draw was over?
Nope, I followed along. I think, as most people have mentioned, pretty interesting. Sometimes the post position draw comes and goes, and you get what you get, and you're okay with it, and that's for any major race. But a lot of horses across all these races, pretty pivotal, and a few of the races we'll talk about here, especially the turf sprint. It really matters where these horses draw, and some got some good posts and some didn't, and I think that was kind of a theme throughout the or a theme we'll see throughout the weekend. So it'll definitely matter, and it definitely is making my handicapping a little trickier than I kind of anticipated heading into today.
Yeah, I will say normally post-position draws are just kind of, you watch because we all love horses and we all love racing and, we want to just be entertained for the hour that they do it. Yesterday, I think there were some very impactful ones. Obviously, Juvenile Day on Friday. You have two heavy favorites for the Aidan O'Brien barn in Stade in the Juvenile, and then Precise in the Juvenile Fillies. Both of those, in the Juvenile Turf and the Juvenile Fillies Turf. Both of those drew 14 and 13, respectively. I think that kind of plays a big factor into things. Even though Henri Matisse was able to win from post 13 last year, I still think you have to take that into account because you really do need everything to go in your favor to win from a post position like that. Was there a post position to you that maybe stuck out the most as whether a positive or a negative, whether it's in the three races we're going to talk about or in the whole card in general?
Well, I'll save it for the turf sprint because it actually made it very easy for me to go through that race. And so I'll save it for that. I'll go with the big one. Actually, I'll go to the end of the day. The filly and mare turf, she feels pretty. I know there's a long race, a lot of ground to cover, but drawing 13, you're not going to save any ground either turn. And that's a horse who there's no proof that she can get the 1 3/8 distance. And she'll be one of the favorites in that race. So I am extremely intrigued to see how that goes. I need to dive deeper into that race, but when I saw she drew 13, that distance, knowing she's not going to be able to save a ton of ground, get the trip she wants, made me pretty concerned. Might have me leaning more towards some of the Euros in there.
I like it. Yeah, that's another race I need to do a lot deeper dive on because that top to bottom, that is one of the most competitive races on a race of 14 races. They're all competitive. Jackson, your thoughts on the post position draw? Who are the winners? Who are the losers? Just one winner, one loser before we get into the sprint stakes.
Well, I like what Eric said about She Feels Pretty because the buzz around her for the last couple of weeks has been, can she get the 11 furlongs? I think it's a big question for a lot of people. And now that she does have post 13, as he said, she's not going to be able to save much ground. So that she's going to have to run even further. And I do wonder whether she's going to drift up to the point where she actually might become a playable price in there, because I could see a lot of people hopping off. And if she does drift up to 5, 6, 7 to 1, that would be a bit of an appealing price, I would think. But she's one that drew negatively. We're going to talk about Copian in a minute. Obviously, that's the big one for me. Other than that, I didn't think it was too crazy. I saw people talking about fiercest draw on the rail. I don't think it's a problem at all. There's a quarter mile run to the first turn. He'll be fine. It's not a big deal at all. So I think there's a couple big ones, but overall, there's nothing too crazy.
Yeah, well, the rail draw for fierceness, I think it's a little more ironic than anything.
Right.
Just with the interview coming out literally minutes before, where Pletcher is adamantly saying we do not want the rail, we want anything but the rail, and then they draw the rail. I don't think it's going to be a huge detriment. Go ahead, Jackson.
I'll give you one more. Nitrogen is not getting talked about enough because she has never taken kickback in any of her races. She's always been able to be in these small fields to get to the outside. Now she's in a race with 13 horses. She's not going to be in front. There's no way she's getting the outside in that race. And if she does, she'll be pretty far out of it. So I think she arguably drew worst of anyone in the entire 14 races.
Yeah, that's a very solid point that you bring up there. Let's get into the main three races that we're going to talk about this afternoon, though, and that is going to be the three main sprint stakes taking place on Championship Saturday. We're going to start with race number 4. It's the Grade 1 Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint to be contested over 7 furlongs on the main track. Eric, how did you view this race, both from a pace setup and obviously one of the top contenders, Copian, has opted to run against the boys. So that maybe, I don't know, did that make the decision easier for you, or is this still a bit of a spread race?
I think it made it a little easier for me because how I thought the race was going to set up made me think I was going to go with Copian. But then when the post position draw came out and I saw where all the speed was drawn, I was able to kind of dial it in on two other horses. I mean, Sweet Aztec is the favorite, and I think that's very reasonable. She's been extremely fast this year. But with Hall and Ice drawing directly to her outside, I don't see how a crazy speed duel doesn't unfold between the two of them. I mean, neither one of them really have a brake pedal. They just run as hard as they can, and when they've been forced off the pace, it's been to their detriment. So they're going to go at it hard. There's going to be maybe some pressure from the Japanese filly drawing inside. I watched all of her replays from the last year or so just to make sure I had a good read on her. And Phoebe Launch, she wants to be forward. She gets really ranked in her races. So she's going to be on the gas. And that's something that I think as we go through the weekend, the Japanese horses the last few years, they've been ridden really aggressively, over aggressively, in fact, because they know they have to match the American speed or they're not going to be able to hang with you. And I think she'll be involved.
Eric, super quick. Sorry to interrupt. Fee Blanc was scratched about half an hour ago.
Was that official?
Yeah. Breeders' Cup posted
thank you.
So that changes up a little bit. I mean, she was going to be 30-1, but it certainly impacts the pace.
Yeah, that matters. That matters for sure. So thanks for telling me that, Jackson, because now it's going to be down to those two, really. But I still think they'll soften each other enough because we're going 7/8 today. If it was 6 furlongs, I'd probably feel better about the two of them. But I really want the horses coming from right behind him. And that could be Splendora, that could be Tamara, a few others in there. But those are kind of the two that I really thought had the best chance, given how I think the race is going to shape up. And Hope Road to the outside. I've got my own opinions on her, but I'd love to hear from you guys first on how you feel about Hope Road.
Jackson, you can take this one.
Yeah, for me in this race, I'm not a huge fan of Sweet Azteca, especially since, as you said, she drew inside of the other main speed. I think she's kind of taken advantage of her last couple of races, the way the pace has unfolded. She'd be one I'd be trying to beat. Tamara at that price, I think, is nuts. She's never run a race fast enough to win this. She's also drawn inside of the other speed horses, and she wants to be somewhat forward. I just feel like Hope Road is supposed to get a really good trip in here, and she's arguably the fastest horse in the race, especially at 4-1. I think it's a very fair price. It's fair to wonder, what happened to back at Churchill, because obviously if she runs back to that race, and a few others, she's not always been the most consistent horse, but she's supposed to get a really good trip in here. Probably the exact same trip she got at Saratoga last time in the Ballerina, where she was able to just sit off the pace, a length or two out of it, on the outside, in the clear, stay out of trouble. I think if she shows up with one of her better efforts, she's going to be very, very difficult to hold off in the final stages.
I agree with that. Hope Road to me, I probably got to do a little more work and a little more of a deep dive, but as of right now, Hope Road is a little bit of a single. The scratch of Fee Blanche honestly helps a Hope Road, in my opinion. I think with Fee Blanche in there, you brought up a really great point. The Japanese horses, with the exception of maybe like Marsh Lorraine, Loves Only You, and Forever Young, every other Japanese horse that comes to mind has been ridden like a quarter horse out of the gate. And they take no prisoners on the front end, and they go, balls to the wall pretty much through the first 3 quarters and just hope that they can hang on. I think that absolutely would have been in play for Fee Blanche, and I think that really would have been the, a setup for, or been cause for a setup for an absolute pace collapse up on the front end. Without Fee Blanche in here, while I think Sweet Azteca and Holland Ice can duel each other into submission, I do think that still leaves the door open in a big way for Hope Road, who should be sitting a very nice trip just behind the pace setters. Jackson referenced the Ballerina last time out, where Hope Road was victorious in a very similar trip, drawn to the outside once again. I anticipate another very clean trip around there, and she does very well at Del Mar, 5 of 6 in the exacta, including 3 of those victories. So I look forward to Hope Road. I hope I get every bit of 4-1. I'm curious to see how this board is played, how this board pans out. I lost my words there for a second, but curious to see the board as everything opens up. But Hope Road to me is a very strong A, especially at 4-1.
Yeah, I have such mixed feelings on this horse because she has the bad losses that you were kind of referencing, Jackson. I mean, she shouldn't have lost the Winning Colors 2 back. The Santa Monica and La Brea more so. She should have ran a much better race that day. So that's where I get really, really shaky. The scratch of Fee Blanche definitely gives her a better chance, in my opinion, because she'll want to be just off that lead. And so if she's able to sit that perfect pressing trip, they're going to go fast, but probably not fast enough to take out the horses right behind them. So Hope Road is probably going to have to be on my tickets, but there are others that I just feel a little bit better about. And one of them actually is Tamara. I will say I hate 7-2 on her. I was not anticipating that at all. I mean, if that's what it is, we'll see how I feel come game day. But she's much better than the figure suggests, and obviously she just took a really big step forward, winning the Chillingworth. I actually didn't like her at all. I thought it was crazy they were trying to target this race. And then I went back and watched the replays, and I said, okay, she is a freak. There's a reason she was 4-5 in the juvenile fillies a couple of years ago. I mean, she has it all going for her. And if you remember, she ended up coming out of the juvenile fillies with some kind of fracture, and that's why she was off for over a year. So her one really bad race has a pretty valid excuse. I'm very intrigued by her, very price dependent. I actually, my gut likes the 2 other Bafferts more than the main Baffert, Hope Road. I really like Splendor, and I really like Ricci to the outside. I thought Splendor's win 2 back in that allowance race at Del Mar, visually super impressive. I mean, she extended beautifully, and that was going 3 quarters. 7/8 is really more in her wheelhouse. as we know, she's run much better in her 2-turn races this year as well. Tranquility Lake, good win. Horses have come back to win from that race. Not Breeders' Cup quality, of course, but that was another visually impressive win. And I just think she's going to get that really nice pocket trip. She's going to be able to save ground inside of horses and come with a big run there. If Sweet Azteca and Hall and Ice do soft each other up, she'll be probably able to sift through. At least I can trust Flavia Pratt most of the time to do it. So I really like her. And then Ricci, I find it very interesting because she's kind of just been a cut below most of her races this year. And I decided to go back through her Chilean form a little bit. And if you look at it, she ran big race after big race around 6 to 7 furlongs, just short of a mile. She's clearly a sprinter in my eyes. And it's crazy to me that she's run so many 2-turn races since that point in her career. But she's done it effectively. But I really do think that this extended 7/8 is way more her thing. I don't really know if she's one that's going to overturn, Splendora, Hope Road horses that she's lost to before, but she's a horse I'm definitely using underneath. I think she's going to fire a huge shot in here and probably hit the board. So at the end of the day, all 3 Bafferts will be involved for me, and then a little bit of Tamara. That's what I'm looking at using in this race.
I like it. I mean, Ricci to me is the other Baffert I would consider using. To me, I don't love Splendora, but I do see your point that she is going to sit a very nice trip, and with Flavia Pratt, that's got to give you a lot of confidence. Ricci for me, I feel like could be maybe a couple, maybe a half length, maybe a length in front of Hope Road and Splendora. So maybe she could get that kind of proverbial first jump on those runners as they turn for home. And we've seen time and again on West Coast racing when one Baffert kind of meets the other, they don't typically pass each other. So it's possible that whoever gets to jump first could very well finish the race on top. So I like the point on Ricci. And Hope Road still remaining my top pick. Jackson, what about you? How are you seeing this race? And Tamara to me a little bit too short of a price for me to endorse, although she is a freak and very talented, clearly.
Yeah, I'm still on Hope Road. I think Hope Road's the horse to beat in here, even if especially if she's third choice, I'd be interested in that. But the other Bafferts have merit too. I don't think Eric's crazy for liking the others. They're capable of running very good races, and they also have different running styles in this race because Hope Road is going to be close. I would expect Ricci to be right behind her, and then I would think Splendora be coming a little bit further out of it with the other 2 speed horses. I think are a little bit faster. So I think Baffert is going to win this race. It's just a matter of which one, and I would certainly lead on the 8. But it's just a pretty competitive race because if you do like the favorite, you're going to get. 2-1 on a favorite is a pretty good price. So It's an exciting race for sure.
I agree with that. This race typically lends itself to a little bit of chaos. Sometimes they end up going a little bit too fast up front. Sometimes things, really get the horses get a little bit leg weary in that final final furlong. We've seen some crazy things. Last year, Soul of an Angel completely blew the break, and that ended up being the reason that she got home because she was so far back, and there were the duelers up on the front end just all kind of came back to the field, and she managed to have the set of fresh legs and ran them all down under Drayden Van Dyke that day. All that to be said, do we give Zeitlos any remote chance if this race were to completely fall apart? Do we think she's ever been fast enough to get there?
I don't think so because there's no reason she shouldn't have hit the board in last year's Filly and Mare Sprint with how that's set up, which I had Soul of an Angel last year, by the way. One of my favorite picks of all time.
Dude, nicely done.
I was sitting there watching the board. I was there the entire time, about 5 minutes to post. I'm like, she's like 20-1 right now. I lean over to my buddy. She's 20-1. I'm like, screw it. I got $10 in my pocket. Let's go fire away. And we did. So she made my day. Had her in exacta too. So, anyways, not to.
I wish I would have talked to you.
Point is,
because
I should have been able to be there with Soul of an Angel as well, and she was not. So that's why she just can't get the 7/8. It's bizarre, but there's something about the 7/8 that kind of sucks a little bit out of her.
Yeah, a little bit. Listen, if I'm still talking about Starless last year in Breeders' Cup, please, you can still talk about Soul of an Angel as you should. That's an incredible pick, and way to sniff that one out at 20-1. All right, that is the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint going as race number 4 on Championship Saturday. Next up, we're going to the turf. It's the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, 5 furlongs over the Del Mar grass, and we'll start from the rail. I know somebody on this show probably has a lot of love for this one horse, Motorious, and it's not the 2 Southern California boys who have watched her dominate the Green Flash the last 3 years.
Yeah, I'm in love with this horse. I really am. This is my banker of the Breeders' Cup. I'm going all in on this horse. My weekend will be made or broken by his performance. He loves Del Mar. He loves the distance. Perfectly drawn. He should have won this race last year, in my opinion. I thought Freysu got a little impatient in between horses, tilted him out. That took all his momentum away. And Ryan, your boy Starlist, snuck right up in that spot he left open. I mean, you watch the replay. It's exactly what happened. And
Good to go this time.
the goal this time will just be to save some ground. Just don't get impatient. Save the ground. Come with the bid. Win the race. I think Freysu's a great rider. I mean, he's a great turf rider. He'll take care of this horse. Last year, he just got a little aggressive. And I don't think that thing. But you watch it here. Broke from the rail.
Yep.
The speed will go outside of him. There's more speed this year. I mean, Cogburn obviously went rogue and did his own thing. This year, there's way more speed that's going to set the table perfectly for this guy. And, the key to these turf sprints at Del Mar, you just got to save ground. You watch every single Breeders' Cup turf sprint race, juvenile turf sprint or turf sprint that's been run here at Del Mar, just save ground. I mean, you got to be drawn low. You got to cut the corner. And we saw it in the juvenile turf sprint and the turf sprint last year. Starlust and Magnum Force, same exact trip. And that's what they got to do again this year.
And let's talk about it. I mean, looking at the replay right now, the 5 AG Bullet, the 2 Motorius, and the 4 Starlust are all against the rail. You see AG Bullet just tipped out as they turn for home. Motorius tips out, and Eric, as you mentioned, Starlust just takes that spot. Starlust stays glued to the rail. Motorius finds room in a split outside of AG Bullet, but Starlust, again, just saved probably, 20 feet more ground, and that was very clearly the difference in the race. You brought up a great point there with the both turf sprints being won by those inside post positions. Both were won by posts 1 through 4, and both exactas were in post positions 1 through 4 as well. So saving all the ground, ultimate importance in there. I think something that I personally forgot until watching the replays a little while ago after the post draw was that Motorius was on the rail last year. So this is nothing new to him. Del Mar is nothing new to him. 7-2, I think, is a very fair price. Jackson, we spoke with Emmett Kennedy, and you've seen him on the HHH Racing podcast as well. Same with Davey Lane. The Euro Sprinters are apparently rubbish, to quote Emmett Kennedy. This has to be Motorius' year, right? He is in the best kind of form that he's been in. He's held that consistent form. Do you think this is his year, or are you looking elsewhere?
It certainly could be. He ran very well in this race last year, and as you guys alluded to, he's probably supposed to get a pretty similar trip, and it's just a matter of can he find a seam or not. But that's the worry, right? When you're taking a horse that comes from way out of it in these 5 furlong turf sprints, if they get stopped at all, they got to be so much the best to overcome something like that. So that's always a concern for him. But 7-2 is a pretty fair price. He's arguably the best horse in the field, so I'm not going to try to talk anyone off of him. I don't think I'd have him on top, but he's certainly a contender in this spot.
Big contender. Who do you have? You don't need to give a top pick necessarily, but who do you have that's maybe one of your A's that you're looking at right now?
I'm looking at the filly. I've always been a big fan of her. I had her last year. I had her in New York earlier this year. I think she's really, really good. I actually really like where she drew in this race too, just outside of the other main speeds, who I think they'll probably just let her go, let Governor Sam go, let Bring the Band Home go, and just follow those two. Try to tuck in, save some ground, and she's probably going to get first jump on these deeper closers who are going to be coming from out of it, like the Motoriuses of this field. So I think she's going to get a good trip. I do believe she's the best horse in the race if she shows up with her best effort. She was big in this race last year too. As you guys saw in the replay, she was closer to the pace, and that pace completely fell apart. She was the one that tried to break that race open top of the stretch and just got a little tired late to finish. I think she was third by like a neck. She was right there at the wire. So nothing crazy from a price perspective, but I do think she's in with a very big shot on Saturday.
Yeah, I don't. I have never been right on AG Bullet in my life, and it's not going to start with the Breeders' Cup unless she doesn't win, and then I'll be right. But I've never bet her, and she's gotten the job done. So I know you like her. I know you liked her in New York, and you were absolutely spot on in the Jaipur up at Saratoga. That was a fantastic race that she ran. She blew the doors off the rest of that field.
Yeah, and that race at Kentucky Downs too. Maybe we can talk about that, the infamous stat. But that race at Kentucky Downs was massive. It completely fell apart. Everyone that rounded out the exotics came from the clouds. She was the only horse that stuck around on the lead, and she won that race pretty decisively too. I think she's in really good form.
I think she's in good form. I'm not I'm not at all against her from that perspective. I just, for whatever reason, I've never been able to fully be on her side. I will say someone that I want to briefly speak about who I think could play a major factor in here is not on the main body of the field, but the number 13 Puro Magic. This is another speedball for Japan. And we know if they draw in, especially from the outside post, we know exactly the MO when they break from the gate, and that is going to be speed, speed, speed. So this horse, I think, would be one that, really, really heats things up. I think that does help Motorius. Eric, as you look through the race, obviously we know you're a strong A in Motorius. Is there anybody else that maybe, scares you a little bit, or who do you think the next kind of best contender is that would worry you the most?
I'm worried about AG Bullet. The thing about me is the trip, because, like I said, going through all the Breeders' Cup races, turf sprint races that have been run here, you got to be drawing low. You got to be able to save the ground. She's the type of horse that could overcome it, no doubt, but she's not going to be obviously the on-top horse. I'll keep her underneath to keep myself safe because she is the quality to run that kind of race. But the horses drawn just outside of Motorius, honestly, those are the horses that'll be filling out my exotics: Reef Runner, Arizona Blaze, and even Kadem. Reef Runner, I love what he's done here in California. He's just brought a big race to the table. Clearly ran well with Motorius 2 back. Arizona Blaze, the Euro sprinters, like you guys just said, they're not much, but this horse is good. And last year, kind of got that same trip. If you watch that replay, the kind of trip he sat in the juvenile turf sprint should be the kind of trip he sits coming up Saturday in the turf sprint, and that should be enough. The best horse in the race has rarely won the race at Del Mar. The juvenile turf sprint and the turf sprint. Best horse rarely wins. It's all about saving ground, getting a clean trip, and maybe getting and obviously some luck. And also maybe having a little pace in front of you. The pace is hardly held up in these types of races. So he's one that I just have to keep around because of that. Cotton is such a weird read for me because I don't think he really wants to go 5 furlongs. But like you said, the 13 draws in and the hot pace already gets hotter. He'll be closing. It's just whether it's going to be a hard closing 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, so on and so forth.
I agree. Caught him as a bit of a weird horse for me because I do agree with you that 5 furlongs maybe is a little bit too short for what he truly wants to do. But at the same time, especially if Puro Magic draws in, they are going to fly through the first half mile, and that last bit is really going to it's going to be a test. And Kadem is going to be coming. I wonder if it's maybe too short. I'm with you. Arizona Blaze is probably my second choice in the race. Ran very professionally here last year as a 2-year-old. Has had really good form this year, and I know we mentioned that the Euro sprinters are a bit trash or rubbish or whatever, but this one has held his form rather well, at least in my opinion. He avoided Champions Day at Ascot, where the turf sprinters came in at like 100 to 1 and 200 to 1 in terms of price. He opted for the Curragh for Irish Champions Weekend. He managed to get the job done in the Flying 5 and the Grade 1 there. So I do believe that Arizona Blaze could come back, and from that nice post position, could certainly get the job done as well. Reef Runner, you mentioned it. He's done a lot of good out in Southern California. That'll be the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. Eric is in love with Motorius. I also love Motorius. I mean, he's a 5 furlong specialist down at Del Mar, and it's either him or Gold Phoenix. I want one of them to win. I don't think Gold Phoenix is going to do it, so Motorius has got to get the job done for us all. That's the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, going as race number 5. Last race we're going to talk about on today's program is race number 6. That is the Breeders' Cup Sprint for the boys and one girl who's in there. Mandela with an amazing quote of they're going to be going too fast, no time to flirt. So not worried about Copian in this race against the male counterparts in here. Jackson, I got to start with you, and we're going to start from the rail. Copian is a horse that you have talked about for the past, 9 months. So you didn't have her opening day at Santa Anita. Our other buddy Noah Maher did, where the horse was 37 to 1, and he didn't have a single expression to be shown, even though he just hit that. Jackson, what are your thoughts on Copian coming in here, facing the boys, going 6 furlongs?
I bet they wish they went to the distaff now that she has the rail in the sprint. Oh man, this is tough. It's very difficult. I think 7 to 2 from the rail is just too low. If she were to drift up from that, maybe get the 5 to 1, maybe 6 to 1, I think I'd be betting her in this spot. But it's a lot to overcome from the rail. It's tough to win from the rail at Del Mar going 6 furlongs, and races have 8 or 9 horses, and now you're adding 4 or 5 more into this field. I mean, she's just gonna have to break on. She's gonna have to break on top and find a way to avoid the clutter of horses from the outside that are faster than her. So she's gonna have to get off the rail. Mike Smith is gonna have to get his money's worth to win this race. I do think she's the best horse in the field. I have little doubt about that. The 6 furlongs is a bit of a question mark, and so is the rail. So I can't bet her anymore in this spot.
Can't bet her. Okay, that's it's been trending that way. I was waiting to see where we were going to end up as we got closer to the Breeders' Cup. Eric, how did you view this race? Obviously, Kopian a big threat, but the rail has to be a huge detriment to her. What did you view? What is your view of this race? Excuse me.
This is the toughest race of the weekend, in my opinion. Especially now that Kopian draws the rail. I didn't love her, honestly, cutting back to 3/4. I just feel like she wants a little further than that. I honestly thought she probably should have ran in the distaff to begin with. So I don't love the spot, and then draws the rail. It's going to be tricky, but it gets even trickier. There's plenty of speed as always in the Breeders' Cup Sprint, and it's very hard to figure out whether that speed is going to cook everybody that's involved or if they'll stick around. Last year I was so confident that the pace was going to completely melt down. I'd structured most of my tickets through some closers. Really liked quite a few off the pace types in there, and none of them came with a run. It was Ben Tornado pressing up in second, Straight No Chaser just outside of them. They turned it into their own little race. Same thing could happen again this year. The presence of the 13 Madhouse, it's crazy that we're even giving this horse much mention, but I think he's kind of the key to the race in terms of how it plays out, because he wants to be on the lead. Since the trainer David Van Winkle from Minnesota has turned this horse into a one-run sprinter, or one way of going sprinter, I should say, on the lead, the light bulb's turned on. He's really fast. You see his time form US early pace figure. He's going to fly early, and that's going to force Straight No Chaser and Ben Tornado and a few others to work a lot harder than they want to deny an American stage. Another Japanese horse with some unreal speed. He kind of showed it in Dubai earlier this year. He wants to be up front, and he's going to fight everyone else for it. So it's going to be fast, but then you kind of got to say, well, last year they survived it. Why can't they do it again? So this is a race I'm definitely going to be going deep in. I'll probably Straight No Chaser. I'd love to hear from you guys on this horse. I know his last race was pretty rough. I think that there's better horses than him at this point, but maybe he's just going to be better second off the bench. He is a very tricky read for me. Obviously, I like Ben Tornado more. He's just in way better form. But, a Straight No Chaser, a horse you guys think will make it, onto your tickets, even underneath?
Jackson, I'll let you go first as I have the race chart up from last year's Breeders' Cup Sprint.
I want to say no. I'm still not convinced the sprint last year was all that good. The pace was fast, but it wasn't suicidal. And it also wasn't contested because Federal Judge kind of cleared. And then you had Ben Tornado about 3/4 of a length behind him. And then you had Straight No Chaser about 3/4 of a length behind them. So they weren't pressuring each other. And the pace, for the most part, it really helped together. And I'm just not entirely sold that race was all that good. And I just didn't like his comeback race either. I thought he had things his own way at San Anita, and he threw in the towel pretty easily. A little too quickly for me. So look, he's 8-1 if you like him. It's a pretty fair price, I think, on the horse that is arguably the fastest in the field. He's just not for me. I think there are others in this race that are more appealing.
I completely agree. Straight No Chaser will not be on my ticket. I do not like him in this spot. I think that last year, I know he kind of showed that new dimension of being able to pass horses. I think it was a virtue of just he had never really met a whole lot of speed in these, in the sprints that he was facing out, at least in California. I know he went overseas and he faced some more there, and he went back to his typical run style. But in a race like this, you can see he was pretty much in the clear the entire way. He never had that horse to his outside. So for him to go by two, I don't want to say tiring, but two that had been used up a little bit more than him, it was kind of just the flow of the race that ended up getting him in the winner's circle. And I think kind of showed that he could pass those horses, but he's never been one necessarily hang. He's just always been the speedball type. And he kind of ran his race that day. I just don't think that this year is going to be anything like last year. I think last year was a very, as Jackson said, there was a pace setter and they did go fast, but they weren't dueling on the lead and they weren't, pressing each other the way I think that they are this year. Can't speak today. American Stage, you mentioned, has only one way of going, and he is going to go to the front. Madhouse from the outside with Luis Saez aboard. We know how tough Luis Saez is to, one, get by in the stretch, as Jackson, our degenerate rule book, would tell us. But from the outside, with that early speed, that horse is absolutely going to go and is going to press the pace. If Straight No Chaser tries to get involved in that, that's going to be an issue. From the outside, if he's too wide, that could certainly be an issue. I just think it does set up for a horse from a little bit more off the pace. I don't think Copian is completely out of it, but what are your thoughts on a horse like Mulligan, who, 15-1 in a race like this after last year being the favorite in this spot and running a decent third outside of the Forego last time out, has really kept that form pretty well.
I mean, he's a talented horse, right? The Churchill Downs is going to be such an interesting race to look back on after this weekend, because the top three all could realistically win their Breeders' Cup race. Mindframe, Banishing, Nisos, 3 different races. I personally think Mindframe has a much bigger shot than is being led on in the Classic. Banishing, I want to touch on him for sure. I think 15-1 is kind of unrealistic. I think people will be jumping a little harder onto him in this race, and the Nisos seems like a lock in the dirt mile. But Mulligan was only a length off those horses. That's kind of the point. Like, all 3 of these horses could run huge, and Mulligan was only a length off of them. And Bookham Dano was the one between them. I just realized that he was the one who finished 4th in that race. So loaded race. Go ahead, Brian.
I was just going to say, you could argue that this was maybe the race of the year if it wasn't for the Breeders' Cup Classic coming up. This Churchill Downs race was phenomenal. The top 5 finishers all ran some of the best races, if not the best race they've ever run. Nisos off that long layoff. Bookham Dano on a miserable trip, to say the least. Mulligan, Banishing, and Mindframe on a sloppy, muddy course, and the inside, wasn't good. And for these all horses to finish pretty much within a length and a half, 2 lengths of each other at the finish, that was one hell of a race. So sorry, continue your thought.
No, I just think it's a worthwhile race to consider, and is the reason I can't fully toss him out, because Bookham Dano's not here. We all know that, and that's the horse he finally gets to get away from. The Forego was such a weird race. The pace was obviously pretty quick. Pratt had him in the firing line, and then if you watch up the backstretch, at about the half-mile pole, he sees a couple horses sneak up his inside, and Pratt kind of taps the brakes on, and the horse completely checks out. I couldn't believe I picked up on this when I was watching it the other day, but I saw it, and I'm like, that might just be the reason he ran so bad, because there's no other explanation that he wouldn't have fired that kind of race he'd run over the summer, losing to Bookham Dano. So he's just another added element of this race that makes it so tough.
We're watching it right now. You can see the 1 and the 2 horse, Most Wanted and Bishop's Bay, come up the inside, and then you can immediately see Mulligan is losing position under Flavien Prat there. I believe that's what you were speaking about.
Yeah, exactly. You can go back a bit, because I kind of talked over the point when I
maybe show the head on, Ryan. I think when it happens, the trees are kind of in the way. So if you have the head on, try that.
Classic Saratoga. God, I love it. Oh, goodness. All right, Frank. Okay, here we go. And we're going to watch. So Mulligan is the 7 horse. He's going to be right here in the WinStar colors. You can see there, by the way, Larry Comas, excellent commercial for WinStar Farm. That was hilarious. All right. So go ahead, Eric. Yeah.
Yeah, so right now he's in the firing line. The 2 horse is the one who sneaks up here. And you see Pratt kind of take that look over his left shoulder. And right here, he kind of reins him in a bit. He sees him rush up. And the moment he reins him in, the horse just gets swallowed up and then loses his position here. Pratt's got to ride him a bit more than he wants. It was really kind of this horse doesn't have all the heart in the world. He can quit at times. And so I think that was kind of a decisive point that cost him even hitting the board in this race. So I think if they ride him a little more conservatively like they did in last year's sprint, and we do kind of get that hotter pace, he'll probably find himself in the mix late. I could say that about 1 million horses, but I think people might overanalyze that Forego a bit too much, or underanalyze it, I really should say, and see that he's 7 feet and 12 lengths. But if that's the reason you get 15-1 on him, I'd take 15-1 on him based off his form before that.
100%. And also at the end of the day, when you see a horse like this that was beaten by 12.5 lengths, one, if something had gone awry, or this horse had maybe not been the same, he's not going to show up in this spot. And 2, a horse like that, Flavien Prat's a smart guy. He's going to protect the horse. So if he knows he's not going to place in this event, which by the time they were returning for home, it was pretty clear that he had kind of used all of his energy. And you mentioned this horse can maybe, have a little bit of quit in him at times, although it's pretty rare that we see that. But this was one of those events where he just didn't fire his best shot. Flavien Prat just kind of wrapped up and protected the horse. And now we see him come back here off a bit of a layoff. So I do think that he's going to be in line for a much better effort. And getting 15-1 on this horse is miraculous. I mean, he can certainly outrun his odds, I think, at 15-1. That's just kind of an early overlay that I can see just looking at the morning lines here.
Definitely. He's got a big chance. I mean, can I talk about two others quickly? I know we've covered
100%
the
you
entire
can.
field, but as we talk, I get a little bit better feel for the race, so I'm glad about it. The two Banishing, I mentioned him earlier. I think he was also 15-1 on the morning line, but I think he'll come down from that. I've already talked to a few people who think he's got a big chance. David Jacobson has spotted him all over the place this year, and it's been pretty successful. But he's always been game, and he's beaten the horses he's supposed to beat most of the time. Ran pretty credibly in that Lucas Classic last time out, and obviously that Churchill Downs earlier in the year is kind of that key race for me. It proved that he can hang with anybody, and he's proven that a bunch of times since then. He hasn't run 6 furlongs since earlier in the year, but those runs at Oaklawn were crazy. The win in the Byerly Turk, that overnight stake from January, just unreal kind of performance. Now, he won't be able to get the same exact trip he got that day, but that kind of raw ability is something that is kind of lacking for a bunch of other sprinters in this race, in my opinion. So he's a horse that I for sure want involved, especially since he'll be outrun early, be able to come with one run, kind of like he did in the Churchill Downs, and should be able to be involved late. And I envision a similar trip for the 7, Imagination. Obviously, San Diego Sprint jumped up, looked really good, beat a few others in here. I struggle to gauge, what he can do from that. Like, is he going to get better from that? That was the only time he's really shown he can be a top level horse in any distance. So because of that, I struggled to fully latch onto him, but visually, I mean, Juan Hernandez kind of barely touched Imagination that day. So I don't know. That's another one I'm probably going to keep involved more so underneath. As I think about it more, I think kind of my top 3 is going to be the 2, 10, and 11. Benton out of the 10, Mulligan the 11, and the 2 Banishing. And then Imagination, definitely going to keep him involved somehow.
Yeah, Imagination's last race certainly could lead to a big step forward next time out, or this Saturday in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. To touch on Banishing real quick, this is a super cool horse, and you gotta love that the connections aren't scared of any race. He has won races at 6, 6.5, 7, 8, 8.5, and 9 furlongs in the past 14 months. I mean, that's remarkable for a horse to be able to do that. He's had multiple different riders. It just doesn't matter. He can be up on the pace. You saw in, I believe it was the Hanshin Stakes at Churchill Downs, went 22-3, 45 flat to the half, going the 1-turn mile, went 108 and 4 as well for 3/4. I mean, that is incredible time, and Will Take It ended up getting the win by a neck. He came from 6th that day. But we've also seen, as you mentioned in the Churchill Downs Stakes, came from about 7 lengths off of it in 11, then just made that one run. He can kind of just be placed wherever. He has a good feel for the race. The horse does. And this gelding just keeps on firing shot after shot. So I hope he runs a big race. He's currently, a fringe B, maybe C type pick for me right now, but I know he's going to show up because he always does. And then Imagination, I mentioned, has the room to improve off that last effort. I think Ben Tornado, very deserving favorite. Jackson, what say you on your thoughts on this race as we kind of wrap up our sprint show?
Yeah, just to be clear, I think it was a little harsh on Copian. I do think if she drifts up to 5 or 6-1, I would still play her. At 7-2, though, I think it's too short. So just to be clear on that, because I don't think I'm ruling her out completely. But as Eric said before we started talking about this race, this could be the most wide open race of the entire weekend. I mean, you're going through all these horses, and I really can't disagree with anything anyone said. I mean, Vanishing has merit. Lovesick Blues has merit. I can talk about 10 different horses in this field and say, yeah, that horse has a path of victory. I guess if you force me to make a top pick right now, Mulligan at 15-1 is just too high because his race is 2 and 3 back. Put him right up there with anyone in this field. And I do think we're going to see a ride similar to what we saw last year when he was the only horse who made any kind of dent from off the pace. Especially given who drew around him, all the speed is inside and outside of him. I think Pratt's just going to sit back and make that one run. So if we do get 15-1, even if we get 12-1, 10-1, I still think it's a pretty fair price on him. So that's where I'd be leaning now. But again, this is a phenomenal edition of the sprint. Can't wait.
I agree. I think rejoined now with Flavian Pratt rejoining the mount on who was I just talking about? On Mulligan. Sorry, on Mulligan. Thank you. And you mentioned, I think the 15-1, anything double digits is going to be a price that I would like on this horse. Eric, I want to thank you for joining us. That was a lot of fun to go over those 3 horses or those 3 races. I'm with you on Notorious. I'm hoping that horse gets the job done. We've watched him so much out here at Del Mar that he deserves a Grade 1 Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint victory. Your thoughts on the Breeders' Cup Classic? I know you mentioned Mindframe is going to get a little bit more play, and you might be inclined maybe to go that way. What are your thoughts overall on that race as a whole, and if you have any horses that maybe you're looking at as an A right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's competitive. You can't, like the race we were just talking about, you can make a case for everybody save the rabbit, and you're going to say, yeah, well, that's a good point. I had Sierra Leone last year. I've had him every race he's ever run it, to be honest with you. I just love the horse. Most of the time he helps me out. Other times he lets me down, but I do think the presence of the rabbit's going to do just enough to get him home again this year. So I'll be playing him, especially if I get that morning line price. I mean, I said, not to take up too much time, but when it came to the Kentucky Derby, I said, this is the shortest price or the biggest price you're ever going to get on this horse ever again. And then we got to the Breeders' Cup Classic last year, and I said, this is the biggest price you're ever going to get on this horse again. And now we're here at this year's Breeders' Cup Classic, and this is the biggest price you'll ever get on this horse again. So I can't jump off him now. So I like him, and I do think Mindframe. I just feel like nobody's talking about a horse who is literally 2 stupid drifts away from being undefeated, winning a Belmont, winning a Haskell. Other than that, he's been perfect, and he looked so good winning the Stephen Foster earlier this year. I'm really not worried about the fact he hasn't had a real race since then, because I just think he's that good of a horse. So he's a horse I'm definitely going to have on my side. That's my top 2 in there. Pending the sovereignty news, I guess. I don't really know how to feel about it. Or obviously, I don't think anybody can make a real decision until we know there. But even if sovereignty runs, I'm going to have those 2 involved in big ways.
I like it. It's certainly a price where it's certainly a field where if you are trying to beat sovereignty, you are going to get your price on any of those runners. Jackson, thank you, or Eric, thank you again for joining us for these 3 Breeders' Cup Sprint shows with the Filly and Mare Sprint, the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, and the Breeders' Cup Sprint. Thanks again for going over your season at Prairie Meadows, because we always root for you and a ton of success. So appreciate your time, and we will certainly see you on one of our shows again soon.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. Super fun.
All right. For your co-host, Jackson, I'm Ryan Anderson. And once again, Eric Decoster, thank you. This has been the Gallop Out, and we'll see you in about 13 minutes with Rachel McLaughlin from Horseshoe Indy.